Welcome back to Classic Books Deep Dive. Today we're doing a deep dive into The Explosive Child by Dr. Ross W. Greene. This book has really had a profound impact on how we understand and support children who struggle with explosive behaviors.
It's been really influential. Dr. Greene offers a perspective that, really challenges traditional notions of discipline and defiance.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just jump right in. What is the core idea that you think makes this book so groundbreaking?
Well, I think Dr. Greene reframes the way we see these kids.
Okay.
Instead of viewing their outbursts as purely defiant or manipulative, he's saying that these children often have lagging skills when it comes to things like flexibility and frustration tolerance.
Oh, interesting.
It's not about bad parenting or intentional misbehavior. These kids literally struggle with the brain wiring that underlies these.
So it's almost like a learning disability, but in the realm of emotional regulation.
Exactly.
Huh, that's fascinating.
And just like any other learning challenge, it requires specific strategies and support, not just stricter discipline.
Wow, that's a crucial shift in thinking for sure.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that example in the book about athletic ability.
Mm-hmm.
Some kids are just naturally good at certain sports while others struggle. But it doesn't mean they're less capable, just that they need different coaching and practice to develop those skills.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. It really highlights the importance of recognizing individual differences and tailoring our approach accordingly.
So how does Dr. Greene help us identify the specific areas where these kids might be lagging behind?
So he outlines 5 key pathways, or skill areas that can be underdeveloped, he calls them. Executive skills, language processing, emotion regulation, cognitive flexibility, and social skills. And what's interesting is that a child might struggle with one or multiple pathways. It's rarely like a one-size-fits-all situation.
Okay, so let's break down these pathways. Let's start with executive skills. What exactly falls under that category?
Okay, so think of executive skills as the brain's management system.
Okay.
These are the skills that help us to plan, organize, stay focused, manage our time, and kind of shift gears mentally. A child who struggles with executive function might have difficulty transitioning from one activity to another, or staying organized with their belongings. It can look like impulsivity or difficulty following multi-step instructions.
So it's not that they're intentionally being disruptive, it's that their brains are having trouble with these essential management tasks.
Exactly. They may understand what's expected of them,
Right.
but their ability to execute those expectations is impaired. Now, moving on to language processing.
Okay.
This is where things get even more interesting. We're not just talking about speaking, but the mental processing of language, which is really crucial for problem solving.
Yeah.
If a child can't articulate their frustration, they're more likely to express it through those explosive behaviors because they lack the words to express their needs effectively.
It's like a pressure cooker with no release valve.
I like that analogy. The frustration just builds and builds without a healthy outlet.
For sure.
And then we have emotion regulation. This is a fascinating one because some kids are just simply wired to be more emotionally reactive than others. It doesn't mean they're intentionally being difficult. Their baseline for handling frustration is just lower.
So even small challenges can feel overwhelming for them.
Right.
It's almost like they're starting the race a few steps behind everyone else.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And then there's cognitive flexibility, which is all about being able to adapt to changes and to see things from multiple perspectives. Kids who struggle in this area tend to have very black and white thinking. They thrive on routines and predictability, and any deviation can trigger an explosion.
I remember that example from the book about the child who completely lost it because their parent took a different route home.
Right.
The change in routine was just unbearable.
Yeah, that's a classic example of cognitive inflexibility. And finally, we have social skills.
Okay.
This pathway encompasses the ability to read social cues, understand social dynamics, and navigate social situations effectively. Social interaction requires a tremendous amount of flexibility and interpretation. If a child consistently misreads cues or struggles to understand the nuances of social interaction, explosions are more likely.
It's like they're walking through a social minefield constantly on edge, waiting for the next explosion.
Right. And what makes this all the more challenging is that these pathways are often interconnected. For example, a child struggling with language processing might also have difficulty with social skills, further fueling frustration and outbursts.
So it's not just about addressing one isolated skill. It's about understanding the complex interplay of these different pathways.
Exactly.
And how they contribute to explosive behavior.
It requires a holistic perspective and a willingness to look beyond the surface behavior to address the underlying challenges.
Now, given these complex dynamics, how does Dr. Greene suggest we handle these challenging situations? He challenges the traditional my way or the highway approach to discipline.
Right, he does, and for a very good reason. That traditional approach, which he calls Plan A, often backfires with explosive kids because it focuses on control and punishment rather than understanding and skill development.
It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline.
Exactly, it simply escalates the situation.
Right.
He also acknowledges that sometimes dropping the expectation entirely, what he calls Plan C, is the most sensible approach.
Okay.
This isn't about giving up. It's about choosing your battles wisely and recognizing when a particular expectation is simply too much for a child to handle in that moment.
So it's about strategic retreat, conserving your energy for the battles that truly matter.
Precisely. And that brings us to what Dr. Greene considers the heart of his approach. Plan B, which is all about collaborative problem solving.
This sounds promising. What does Plan B look like in action?
So Plan B is about engaging the child as a partner in finding solutions.
No.
It's not about giving in.
Right.
It's about teaching valuable life skills like communication, negotiation, and problem solving. It shifts the dynamic from an adversarial one to a collaborative one.
So it's empowering rather than punitive.
Exactly. And it involves 3 key steps: empathy, define the problem, and invitation.
Let's break down these steps, starting with empathy. What does true empathy look like in this context?
It's more than just saying, I understand.
Right.
It's about truly reflecting the child's feelings back to them, validating their experience even if you don't agree with their behavior. It's showing them that you're genuinely trying to see things from their perspective and understand their experience.
So it's about active listening,
Right.
really tuning into what the child is communicating both verbally and non-verbally,
Yes.
and making them feel heard and understood.
Exactly. And Dr. Greene provides some really helpful examples of how to phrase empathetic statements in a way that genuinely resonates with children.
What about the second step? Define the problem.
So this is where you acknowledge both the child's and the adult's concerns.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that there are 2 sides to every story and creating space for both perspectives to be heard and respected.
So it's about finding common ground and establishing a collaborative framework.
Exactly. And finally, we have the invitation. This is where the brainstorming begins.
So this is where we put on our creative thinking caps and start exploring potential solutions together.
Exactly. And even if the child's initial ideas seem unrealistic, the process itself is valuable.
Yeah.
It gets them thinking flexibly, considering different perspectives, and practicing those essential problem-solving skills.
It's not about finding the perfect solution right away. It's about embarking on the journey of collaboration and skill building together.
Precisely. And the explosive child offers several compelling examples of how parents and educators have successfully used Plan B to navigate challenging situations.
So far, we've mainly focused on the child's perspective, but what about the adults involved? How does Dr. Greene address the impact on parents and educators?
That's a crucial point. He recognizes that explosive kids can significantly strain families and educators.
Right.
It can feel like a constant earthquake shaking the foundation of the family or classroom.
That's a very vivid image.
Yeah.
So how does he suggest navigating that impact?
Well, Dr. Greene highlights the importance of healthy communication patterns within families and classroom,
Okay.
avoiding sarcasm, put-downs, and overgeneralizations that can escalate conflict. He also stresses the importance of self-care for parents and educators.
Yeah.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Taking care of yourself is crucial. It's not selfish. It's essential to effectively support the child.
Absolutely. And he also acknowledges that sometimes professional intervention is necessary, whether it's therapy, medication, or even residential treatment.
This is about recognizing when a child needs more support than a family or school can provide.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Yeah.
It's about doing what's best for the child and everyone involved.
I'm curious about the broader applications of these principles. Could Plan B be useful in other areas of life beyond parenting and education?
Absolutely. Think about conflict resolution in the work or even in personal relationships. The principles of empathy, collaborative problem solving, and skill building can be incredibly beneficial in those contexts as well. We're all susceptible to frustration and inflexibility at times, regardless of our age or role.
It seems like Dr. Greene is uncovering universal truths about human behavior, using the specific lens of explosive kids.
That's a great observation, and that raises an important question. How have you seen these principles play out in your own life? Have you encountered situations where Plan B could have been helpful?
Yeah.
We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences.
We'll delve further into those ideas in part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay.
But for now, we encourage you to reflect on these principles and how they might resonate with your own experiences.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the explosive child.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
We've been exploring Dr. Greene's approach to understanding and supporting these kids. And we left off talking about Plan B, which is all about collaborative problem solving.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating shift from that more like traditional authoritarian approach to discipline.
Right.
But I imagine it's not always smooth sailing, like when putting Plan B into practice.
Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges people might encounter when they're trying to do this?
You're right. It's not always easy, especially when you're dealing with a child who's already in a heightened emotional state.
Right.
One common mistake is relying too heavily on what Dr. Greene calls emergency Plan B, which is trying to implement collaborative problem solving in the heat of the moment when the child is already exploding.
That makes sense. It's like trying to have a rational conversation with someone in the middle of a panic attack.
Exactly.
Their ability to think clearly and logically is just totally compromised.
Precisely. Dr. Greene emphasizes the importance of what he calls proactive Plan B, which is about addressing problems before they escalate into a full-blown meltdown.
So it's about being proactive and preventative rather than just reactive.
Exactly. This means understanding the child's individual pathways and triggers, recognizing patterns, and having those collaborative conversations when everyone is calm and receptive.
It requires a much deeper understanding of the child's specific needs and challenges.
Absolutely. Another common pitfall is what Dr. Greene refers to as missing steps. You're not truly using Plan B unless you're consistently following all 3 steps in the correct order. Empathy, define the problem, and invitation.
It's like baking a cake. If you skip a crucial ingredient, the final result won't be what you expected.
That's a great analogy, and one of the steps that often gets overlooked is empathy.
Right.
It's easy to just jump straight into problem-solving mode. But without that genuine empathy, the child won't feel heard or understood.
Right, and that can lead to them feeling even more frustrated and misunderstood, which just exacerbates the situation.
Exactly. It's about going beyond a surface level, I understand, and truly reflecting the child's feelings in a way that demonstrates you're trying to see things from their perspective.
So it's about connecting with their emotional experience, not just their behavior.
Exactly. Dr. Greene offers some really helpful phrases and examples that can guide parents and educators in expressing empathy effectively.
Now, what about the second step? Define the problem. What are some common mistakes people make there?
One common pitfall is jumping into solutions before clearly defining the problem.
Okay.
It's like trying to build a house without a blueprint. You need a shared understanding of the issue before you can brainstorm solutions effectively.
And that shared understanding involves acknowledging both the child's and the adult's concerns.
Precisely. It's not about one person being right and the other being wrong.
Right.
It's about finding a solution that addresses both perspectives as much as possible.
It's about finding that win-win scenario where everyone feels heard and respected.
Exactly. And then we have the invitation stage where the brainstorming begins.
What are some key considerations for that step?
It's important to remember that even if a child's initial ideas seem unrealistic, crucial to validate their effort and encourage their participation in the brainstorming process.
So it's about finding that balance between guidance and empowerment.
Exactly. The book provides helpful strategies for facilitating this process, like asking open-ended questions, breaking down complex problems into smaller steps, and drawing on past experiences to generate ideas.
It's about teaching them a process, a way of thinking and approaching problems that they can apply to a variety of situations in their life.
Exactly. The more they practice this process, the more confident and competent they'll become in handling frustration and conflict. It's like learning to ride a bike. At first, you need training wheels and support, but eventually you develop the balance and skills to ride independently.
That's a great analogy. It highlights that learning these skills takes time, patience, and a lot of practice.
Absolutely. There will be setbacks and challenges along the way.
Yeah.
But with consistent effort and support, these kids can make significant progress. And it's important for parents and educators to remember that they're not alone in this journey.
Right.
Seeking professional guidance when needed is a sign of strength, not weakness.
So in addition to collaborative problem solving, are there other strategies that Dr. Greene recommends for supporting these children?
Yes, Dr. Greene also delves into strategies for teaching those lagging skills.
Okay.
The specific pathways where explosive kids often struggle. He provides concrete guidance on teaching kids to identify and articulate their concerns, consider a range of possible solutions, think more flexibly, and improve their social skills.
And these are skills that will benefit them far beyond just the realm of explosive behavior.
Right.
These are essential life skills that will help them navigate relationships, school, work, all aspects of life.
Exactly. It's like giving them a toolbox of strategies they can use to manage their emotions, communicate effectively, and solve problems constructively. And teaching these skills should be approached with the same understanding and patience as any other learning challenge.
So it's about recognizing that these kids aren't intentionally being difficult.
Right.
They're genuinely struggling.
Precisely. And Dr. Greene offers specific examples and techniques for teaching these skills, tailored to each of the 5 pathways.
Right.
He provides practical advice on breaking down complex tasks, using visual aids, incorporating role-playing, and creating structured environments that support their learning.
It's about creating a supportive and empowering environment where the child can learn and grow at their own pace.
Exactly. And the book also addresses the importance of family dynamics and communication patterns that can contribute to explosive behaviors.
So it's not just about focusing on the child in isolation. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of the family or classroom system.
Yes.
And addressing underlying issues that might be fueling the conflict.
Precisely. Dr. Greene emphasizes the importance of healthy communication patterns, avoiding sarcasm, put-downs, and overgeneralizations that can escalate conflict.
And he offers specific examples of how to rephrase common statements in a more constructive and empathetic way.
Yes, he offers practical tips for parents and educators, helping them shift their communication style from reactive to proactive, from punitive to empowering.
It's about creating a more harmonious and supportive environment where everyone feels heard, respected, and understood.
Exactly. And this leads to another key point Dr. Greene emphasizes, the importance of self-care for parents and educators.
It's so easy to get burnt out and overwhelmed when you're constantly dealing with explosive behavior.
Absolutely. The book encourages parents and educators to prioritize their well-being, to seek support from friends, family, or professionals, and to engage in activities that replenish their energy and resilience.
Because taking care of yourself is essential to effectively supporting the child.
Exactly. Now, there's one more sensitive topic that Dr. Greene addresses. It's the question of when professional intervention might be necessary, such as medication, therapy, or even residential treatment.
And it's important to remember that these interventions aren't a sign of failure.
Absolutely. They're a recognition that sometimes a child needs more specialized support than a family or school can provide.
Right. And those decisions should always be made in collaboration with qualified professionals.
Of course, Dr. Greene stresses the importance of taking into account the child's individual needs and circumstances.
Right.
He also devotes a chapter to the role of medication, recognizing that it can be a helpful tool in some cases.
But not a magic bullet.
Exactly. He emphasizes that medication should always be used judiciously and in conjunction with other interventions.
Right.
He outlines various types of medications that can be used to address specific symptoms.
Okay.
Like hyperactivity, inattention, irritability, and impulsivity.
And it sounds like working closely with a qualified child psychiatrist is crucial.
Absolutely. Dr. Greene provides a lot of guidance and reassurance to parents and educators to help them navigate this process thoughtfully and responsibly. So we've covered a wide range of topics in our deep dive into the explosive child, understanding lagging skills to implementing Plan B to addressing family dynamics and considering the role of medication.
And I think one of the most powerful takeaways is this shift in perspective.
Right.
It's about moving away from seeing these kids as defiant or manipulative and towards understanding that they're struggling.
It's about recognizing their behavior as a communication of unmet needs.
Right.
It's about moving from judgment to empathy and from punishment to empowerment.
And while the book focuses on explosive children, these principles of understanding, communication, and collaboration have much broader applications.
Absolutely. They can be applied to relationships, work, parenting, and any aspect of life where conflict and frustration arise.
That's a great point. So in our final part, we'll explore how these principles can be applied in the school setting.
Okay.
We'll look at how educators can adapt and implement these strategies in the classroom.
Welcome back to our final segment on the explosive child. We've been unpacking Dr. Greene's approach to understanding and supporting these kids who struggle with explosive behavior, both at home and in other settings.
Right. And, kind of building on those conversations, I think it would be good to shift our focus now to the classroom.
Yeah, that's a great point.
How can educators apply these principles, especially given the unique dynamics of a school environment?
Yeah, it's a great question because trying to implement these strategies with a room full of students presents a whole different set of challenges compared to, working one-on-one with a child. Absolutely. But Dr. Greene really emphasizes that the core principles still apply.
Yeah.
It starts with that same fundamental shift in perspective, recognizing that explosive outbursts in the classroom, they often stem from those same lagging skills that we talked about earlier, flexibility and frustration tolerance.
So it's about moving away from labeling a child as disruptive or defiant, and instead understanding that they might be struggling with these underlying challenges.
Precisely. And just like in families, the key is shifting from a punitive, reactive approach to a more collaborative and proactive one. Plan B, while needing some adaptations, can be just as effective in a classroom setting.
So how does Plan B translate to a school setting? How do you even begin to implement these strategies when you have so many other students to consider?
Well, I think it begins with building a strong supportive team.
Okay.
Teachers, administrators, counselors, parents all need to be on the same page. Everyone needs to understand the child's individual challenges and work together to create a supportive plan.
It's like weaving a safety net, with each member of the team playing a crucial role in supporting the child.
That's a great way to put it. And clear, consistent communication is essential.
Right.
Everyone involved, from the principal to the classroom aide, needs to be aware of the child's triggers, their strengths, and the strategies being used to support them.
It's about consistency and presenting a united front.
Exactly. And Dr. Greene offers some specific examples of how Plan B can be implemented in the classroom.
Okay.
It might involve things like adapting assignments to better suit the child's needs.
Okay.
Creating designated calming spaces within the classroom.
Yeah.
Or, proactively addressing potential conflicts before they escalate.
It's all about creating an environment where the child feels safe, understood, and supported.
Precisely. But it's important to acknowledge that teachers have a lot on their plates.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Greene recognizes the reality of time constraints, limited resources, and the constant need for professional development.
So it's not about expecting teachers to become therapists overnight. It's about equipping them with the tools and support they need to effectively implement these strategies.
You get it. The book offers practical advice on advocating for resources, building collaborative partnerships with parents, and creating a school culture that embraces these principles.
It's about shifting the mindset from punishment to support, from isolation to collaboration.
Exactly. And while it can be challenging to implement these strategies in a busy classroom,
Yeah, for sure.
the potential rewards are huge.
Okay.
When explosive children feel understood and supported, they're more likely to engage in learning, build positive relationships, and thrive both academically and socially.
It's about creating a ripple effect of positive change that extends beyond the individual child and impacts the entire classroom community.
That's a wonderful way to think about it. And I think it highlights a key point that Dr. Greene emphasizes throughout the book. This isn't just about fixing kids. It's about cultivating a more compassionate and understanding world.
It's about recognizing that we all struggle with flexibility and frustration tolerance at times, and that we all benefit from support in developing these crucial skills.
Absolutely. By applying these principles in our homes, classrooms, and even our own lives, we contribute to a more empathetic and supportive society for everyone.
We're shifting the focus from blame to understanding, from judgment to compassion.
And I think that's a beautiful message to end on. The explosive child not only provides these practical strategies, but also encourages a really profound shift in perspective. And this shift can transform how we view and respond to challenging behaviors, both in children and in ourselves.
It reminds us that behind every explosive outburst is a struggling child who needs our empathy, support, and guidance.
Exactly. And by embracing these principles, we can help these children and ourselves navigate life's challenges with greater understanding, resilience, and connection.
We hope you found this exploration insightful and thought-provoking. And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the explosive child.